Well, hi, this is Lynn. Welcome, welcome. Today is the very first day of the month of May. The year is 2024. We're here to talk about implications, not applications. And this is our Advancing Nurse Coaching webinar. We're thrilled to invite Teresa Walding to present our PowerPoint today. Our work is based on the work of Dr. Keith Blevins and Velda Monroe. They are our mentors, and we've been working with them over the past 8 years in regard to nurse coaching. Nurse coaching is the newest area of the profession, and right now there are about 3,000 nationally board certified nurse coaches and others throughout the world. So we're so glad to be part of the leading edge of the profession and having the opportunity to bring the information to you, which will be the leading edge information that will be that we will all be bringing to our clients as the profession expands and rewrites the definition of nursing. Teresa?
Boy, that's a tall order, Lynn. I think it's really fun to be in this space, and it's really fun to be with you today. We had a little snafu, if you will, as we started this, and I thought it happened perfectly, as the future is an incomplete equation. So we had a little technical difficulty starting the meetings, so a couple of people weren't able to stay on the call, but we want to record this for you, for people to enjoy and hear. The future is an incomplete equation. In another lifetime, I think the difficulties that we had, we would have went, let's just don't do it. We'll just go ahead and do it later. But no, we're going to stay here. We're going to do it now. And we want to just really share with you, the future is an incomplete equation. And I want to say, this is one of my favorite topics. This topic is the one that really helped me stop the overthinking and the busy mind. So as we go through the slide, it's very similar to what we did last month in that it's an implication, not application. And we'll get ready here and talk about that. So here we go. I'm going to share the screen, Lynn. Here. The future is an incomplete equation, and in embracing uncertainty in nursing, especially. Everyone is up in arms. Lynn and I just came back from a conference where the nursing leadership in Texas got together, Texas Organization of Nursing Leaders, Texas Nurses Association, and the Texas Board of Nursing. And I think that's why I'm so resonating with this. The future is incomplete, but guess what? We get to go in a direction and change nursing the way we want it to look in the future. And it starts here. So embracing this uncertainty actually gives us some power and a direction that we can begin to solve our problems, because the problems aren't going away, but the way we solve them, all kinds of ways to do that. So what we'll talk about today is why future thinking is not always helpful, and how understanding how our thinking works decreases the fear and anxiety, especially about the future. And it's one of those places where we think we can make a plan, work our plan, we're going to get these results. But the reality is we don't really know how that's going to turn out. And in that, embracing the unknown, or knowing that we can't control what's happening in the future, can quiet our thinking and give us a sense of peace, even in the midst of the chaos. Lynn?
I think we could talk a minute about what it's not. So what would the opposite of the future be? The opposite of the future would be the past. And what we know about the past is according to calculations by people who do these things, we have 600,000 thoughts a day, and 98% of those thoughts are thoughts that we've thought before, over and over and over again. So in the past, we find rumination, regret, and just general disquiet about what has happened. But so the opposite of that, ruminating, is anxiety. And here we're learning how to live in the moment. So today's topic is absolutely perfect for where our society and culture are in the moment, which is that our future thinking is also getting us into problems. Thinking about the past, regrets, remorse, ruminative thinking, that's not helpful. And here we're thinking about future thinking. So what we want to do is look at how understanding future thinking will assist us in the number one problem in mental health today is anxiety. Where does that come from? So future thinking is anxiety and fear. And we're talking now about decreasing that. We're decreasing the number one problem for mental health in the world today.
So we're going to dive right in because we're going to spend all the time on this slide. So if you want to take a picture of it, or if you want to write it down, you'll have plenty of time to do that. Because in this one slide, we can talk about everything from why we can't know what's going to happen in the future, what that means for us, how it hurts us in a sense with this stress and anxiety that so many people are having, and really bring us back to this present moment, this place where we can solve our problems, where we realize that we are okay in this moment. And so I want to go ahead and dive in. Lynn, would you like to read the outside in?
Yeah, I sure would. I'm going to go ahead and say that we did mention Keith Blevins and Velda Monroe. This is copyrighted by them. So if it were to be used, it would need to have their contribution mentioned anytime that you used it. So we've got what are called implications rather than applications. Our profession is just covered with applications, the way to do this, the way to do that. But here we're talking about an implication, which is if this, then that. It's a fact. If this, then that. So when we say that the future is an incomplete equation, looking at it from the outside in, and outside in is not necessarily outside of ourselves, but an attitude, an approach, a perspective that we use to look at things. And then we're going to talk about inside out in a minute. But outside in, we think we have a complete equation when we think about the future. We imagine scenarios, create expectations, and spend time thinking about them as if they were true. This detaches us from reality. We also try to talk to others into believing them too. We get disappointed, afraid, and upset when our imagined scenarios do not come true. You see that word imagined down there. So back up at the top, we think we have a complete equation. We think we know how things are going to be. We imagine scenarios and create expectations. And we talk to other people about our expectations as though they were going to happen. This quite literally does detach us from reality, because when we're trying to talk other people into believing our expectations, our illusions, our imagined scenarios, there's no basis to it. There's no concrete evidence to it. It's all made up. So we can't really get buy-in from another person because there's no basis for them to come in to our ideal scenario, because they have their own. We each have our own thoughts. They can't have ours. And thinking about it as though our expectations were the most important leaves them out of the equation. Teresa?
I just want to say here, many people that have signed up for this have heard us speak before, so they have an idea about what we're talking about with this inside out and outside in terminology. But the other thing I wanted to mention is the equation that we use is mind plus consciousness plus thought equals reality. And in the outside in, thought in the moment, thought itself is not included, because we can't actually be in the future. That equation applies directly to the past as well. We can't be in the past because thought in the moment is not included. And you might have to listen to that a couple of times to hear the difference. But what it's really saying is we're not in those places. We're not in the past and we're not in the future, because we can't know what we're going to say, think, or do in the future. And the past is just a memory carried through time that we experience in this moment. That's probably a little deep for the conversation, but I know some of you listening will hear that and be able to see why this equation, mind plus consciousness plus thought equals your reality, can really help us settle down, as we'll be able to talk about it here from the inside out.
Well,
And I'll
and
just
we could
go
say
ahead.
that living in the past, we often talk about people who have suffered a traumatic situation, a disappointment, a loss in their life. And we talk about them as though they were continuing to live in the past because it's so ever present with them. But the reality is we never remember the past in exactly the same way. And what the past is leaving out completely is our thought in the moment. So we only experience the past through our thought in the moment. And that past is over, it's gone, it will never reappear in its same form. And our memories of it are not complete. We have a different memory every time we think about it. And sometimes, which has been proven scientifically, sometimes that memory will fade, and every time it's thought of, it will be less painful. But we could say the same thing here about future thinking, that in our urgency to create a scenario about the future, anxiety comes into play quite often. And that's precisely the reason why it is considered, why anxiety is considered the number one mental health problem in our society today. We simply have anxiety about an illusion, a made up future, an imagined future that we're bringing to ourselves and our friends and family, creating expectations for them about them. And there's no there's no scientific evidence that even exists, because it does not. It's all made up in our thinking about the future.
Wow. So inside out, which is really truly the only place we ever live. Inside out meaning we know that we are the thinking, living, breathing human being that we are. That includes our mind, body, and spirit. And we realize that thinking about the future, we know we don't have a complete equation. Mind plus thought plus consciousness equals reality, but not if thought in the moment is not there. So the only time we experience our life is here and now. So we know that we do not know what our thinking will be, what will come to us in the moment. I like the idea of planning for a vacation, and we imagine what we'll do there and how we'll feel and what it'll look like and smell like and what we'll do. And in my view, planning is one of the most fun things about a vacation, but we won't actually know what it's like till we get there. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what the weather will be like or who we will meet. And so I hope you can see that while we need a direction to go, making plans is perfectly normal, but we won't know what we'll think or do or say until we get there. Because of that, we can spend less time thinking about the future scenarios and lean into the experience. And, many people have goals. So having a goal is great. An intention to do something in your life, perfect. But when we don't have to hang on so tightly to what we think it will look like when we get there, actually opens up space for us. So we will spend less time in that imagining space and be in the present creating that place for us to go. So, obviously the next line says, don't think about the future. It's not saying don't think about the future. It's just saying that when we do think about the future, we will know, because we are conscious, aware people, that our thinking in the moment will always be missing. So this brings us to the reality that surprisingly unburdens us from this extra thinking, this anxiety that so many people are living in today. And it's very freeing to go, oh, I'm worrying about this. I want to do that. What about this? What about that? And realizing the only time I get to make those decisions is here and now relieves a lot of that stress and anxiety and brings you present to your life. It's really a place of no other place to be.
I remember a funny story that I saw on social media. It was a woman was trying to decide what to wear on New Year's Eve, and she was going back and forth about what to wear, what to wear. And then finally she said to herself, well, um, I'm just going to the living room to watch TV. It shouldn't be such a problem. But then she said, or I might just not even go. So she made the whole thing up in her head. There was a whole tornado of thoughts about what she would wear, and did she want to go on New Year's Eve to celebrate. And turns out that it was going to be just her in her own living room, and there she made this whole thought storm up in her head about what to wear, what to do, and it was all made up. It was all in her head, just all of those anxious thoughts about how to celebrate New Year's Eve, because there was no place to go. There was nothing to do. She was just going from her bedroom to the living room, but she made it into a very confusing situation for herself. And in the final analysis, she said, I might not even go.
Been there, done that. So sometimes that happens when I get ready to go to a conference or on vacation, and I don't pack my clothes till the night before or the morning of. And it always changes. I'm like, "Ah, I just decided I don't want that. And or I needed to go get something else. I don't know what I'm gonna do when from one minute to the next, much less in this future that's out here somewhere. And just one other short little story, we do other things to ourselves about future thinking. When the pandemic hit, I sort of got spun up about like what would happen if my daughter got COVID, or what would happen if I got COVID. And it was back when nobody really um, knew what was going to go on. And I remember really suffering with my thinking about all the what ifs. And so much so that I decided to go for a drive. And after about an hour, I called my friend Lynn here, and I said, I just can't get peace about this. I'm concerned about what might happen. And she said, Teresa, you're as safe as you've ever been in this moment. And all of a sudden I went, oh yeah, I forgot. I was thinking of a lot of future scenarios that were taking me down a path that were really uncomfortable and felt scary. But the reality was I was driving around in my car and nothing had happened. And to this day, nothing has happened. So had I lived in that fear for all of this time, I don't know what would have happened, what that would have been like. I can imagine that it would have been very uncomfortable and very scary. But there's a lot of places in our life that we do that to ourselves. We think about things, we get worried about things, and then if we can catch ourselves, if we can realize, oh, nothing has really happened yet. It's me. I'm doing this to myself. I can make a choice, a conscious choice, because I'm aware of my thinking and decide not to go there. And that decision is one way of helping us stay on track with how life works. The mind, consciousness, and thought equals reality brought me back to the present moment. And suddenly I was like, oh, the moon is out. People are playing in their yard, walking down the street. No one was as worried as I was about what might happen. And I sort of had to laugh because I thought, I've done this my whole life. That's where the freedom comes. That's where the unburdening happens, is in that recognition or that realization of what we are doing with our own thinking. And this is just one example, an implication about how our thinking works that really gives us a reason to pause, to consider, well, where do I think my feelings are coming from? Where do I think my feelings are coming from that is either helpful to me or not helpful to me? And this one implication really does help us to come back home to ourselves, to realize once again, because I forget frequently, that I am the thinker and the feeler of the life I'm living. And I love being in this place.
This beautiful unburdening of ourselves and the people in our society is going to eliminate untold amounts of human suffering. I'll say that again. Untold amounts of human suffering will be relieved by knowing this fact of the future is an incomplete equation. Once we know that, we don't have to go there. And that anxiety will be a thing of the past.
It certainly has calmed me down. I think the beauty of of the insight or the realization that this is how our thinking works really gives an ability to enjoy life now, to not worry so much about the things that used to take me off track a long ways. And so I really hope that this conversation is helpful for you, that there's maybe one or two parts of it that really resonate, that allow you to sort of see your own thinking in a different light. I
This,
want to go on to this.
yeah, I guess it just to say that one of our colleagues was running a race, and he was just aching from head to foot. And when he realized that thinking about himself and his running, his future, was so painful to him, he realized that that was made up in his head. It was an anxiety that he was producing through his thinking. And when he realized that, he ran and completed the 12-hour race. And basically, even though the pain was still there, the suffering was gone.
I love that. I've heard several stories about how in our suffering, we can't think about anything else. And yet realizing that suffering is also thought, it's our thought, and we can see it for what it is, it does help us in those moments. And so this implication, the future is an incomplete equation, and especially in nursing, it informs us of how we see our past and our future, of where we've been, especially as nurses, and where we're going. Everyone who is a nurse or a healthcare professional right now is creating the new future of healthcare. And when we can think about it from this perspective, we actually have an opportunity to have new thinking about it. Maybe not so reactive or fearful. There's a lot of fear around where the profession is going as far as staffing and workplace circumstances. And I think if we can really come present and solve what's happening in our life right now, that's what will change the future. And we can see our life how it really is. There are so many good things going on in nursing right now. People are creating programs, they're becoming colleagues with their people at work. We're trying to solve the problems of nursing. And it will be through insight that we actually solve them as we begin to see going in this direction of what nurses want, what we want our profession to look like. The nursing of the future will be what we create today. And as we have insight, the things that we do will be personal and powerful for us, for each of us individually and collectively. So as this new way of understanding emerges and people begin to realize we live in a thought-created world, and it's our thought. And we are brilliant and we have wisdom, but every single individual in the world has a separate reality from each other. And the vehicle we have to work collectively, to work together, is a common language, the spoken language, the written language, and our ability to communicate with each other. So I hope you will join us in elevating nursing and really giving our profession the much needed step up that we've all wanted to practice to the top of our licensure, to bring the health and well-being that people desire to the world. And that's what nurse coaches are doing. We see the health in every individual, and we want to show people how to do that. And
I think that it's remarkable in a way that during the pandemic time, the same three organizations that put on this recent summit wrote to the nurses of Texas and asked, What are you doing at the bedside? Tell us what your solutions have been so that we can share them. And now they're coming back to nurses and saying, tell us about your experience. Tell us how we might move forward. And at the end of the presentation, they said that they were surprised at how frequently the idea of self-care came up in regard to nursing. And of course, as community health nurses with the American Holistic Nurses Association, that's precisely the space that we've been in for 43 years. So it's a joy now to see that the larger institutions that are over our nursing practice are seeing what we're seeing and that they're listening to us.
I love it. So if you enjoyed this presentation, we'd really invite you to come on to check out Advancing Nurse Coaching. If you are not a coach, we would love to have a conversation with you to see if that's something you would like to do. If you are already a coach, keep an eye out. We're going to be doing some continuing education for recertification and relicensure. So we'll be sharing more about the implications, not applications, and looking forward to sharing more about the 3 principles, which is the foundation of our course and truly the foundation of our life. It's a conversation worth having, and really there's no other place to be. This conversation is changing lives exponentially. When we know that we are the thinker and the feeler of our lives, everything changes. It doesn't sound like very much, but it truly is the one place where all change happens. Every change starts as a thought. And we say those words, but I don't think we ever take them to heart for what they're worth and say, I want to know more about that. So please, if you would like to check out the QR code, you can take a picture and drop your name into the contact form, or you can reach out on the nursecoaching.com website, and we would love to have a conversation with you.
So we really are bringing new life, freedom and autonomy to your career. We really are learning how to use the future as an incomplete equation while becoming a board certified nurse coach. It's as simple as scheduling a call, and there's no obligation. We're delighted to talk with you. It may not be the right move for now. We hope that it is, but let's have a conversation about that. And as Teresa has said, there's our QR code. Delightful to meet you here and very much looking forward to our next conversation with you.
We are Lynn and Teresa at nursecoaching.com, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks so much. Have a good day.